سلام دوستان گرامی. امروز برایتان گزارش ویژه از کنفرانس سالانه مسعود در دانشگاه کمبریج دارم. این نشست یکی از مهمترین رویدادهای علمی و سیاسی درباره آینده افغانستان است. هدف کنفرانس چی بود؟ کنفرانس به نام احمدشاه مسعود برگزار می شود. هدف آن بررسی آینده افغانستان، ساختار حکومت، شمولیت و نمایندگی عادلانه است. موضوعات اصلی و اساسی در این کنفرانس چی بود؟ آیا افغانستان باید یک حکومت متمرکز داشته باشد یا فدرالیسم و خودگردانی؟ خب چگونه همه اقوام، زنان و اقلیت‌ها در قدرت سهم داشته باشند؟ نقش حقوق بشر، آزادی‌های مدنی و جایگاه زنان پس از طالبان چه خواهد بود؟ و مهمتر از همه طراحی یک نقشه رای ملی مشترک برای آینده افغانستان. نتایج این دو روز چی بود؟ 90% اهداف و ارزش‌ها میان گروه‌ها مشترک بود. دموکراسی، آزادی و عدالت. یک گروه کاری برای تدوین نقشه رای ملی تشکیل شد. بر مشارکت زنان، دانشگاهیان، علما و جوانان تاکید شد. همه توافق کردند که انتقال سیاسی بعد از طالبان باید شفاف، عادلانه و فراگیر باشد. البته اختلافات هنوز هم وجود دارد، مثلا نوع نظام آینده و شیوه مقاومت ملی. در این کنفرانس شخصیت‌های بزرگ هم از دوران جمهوریت، هم پروفسورهایی که در اینجا در دانشگاه‌ها تدریس می‌کنند، خبرنگاران و قلمبرستان اشتراک کرده بودند. عزیزان، من هم بخش‌های کوتاهی از این کنفرانس را برای شما کوتاه می‌گذارم. امیدوار هستم که مورد علاقه و توجهتان قرار بگیرد.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, let me begin with expressing my deepest gratitude to the organizers of this conference today, the Cambridge Massoud Conference, the Global Mosaic Foundation, and my dear friend, Mr. Zalman Nishat. It is a privilege to speak at one of the world's great centers of learning about an issue that carries immense importance not only for Afghanistan, but also for international peace and security. Article 51 of the United Nations Charter clearly affirms the inherent right of individual for collective self-defense if an armed attack occurs. The Taliban seizure of Afghanistan in 2021 was not the result of elections or a peaceful transfer of power. It was an armed coup enabled by terrorism and unfortunately foreign intervention. Since then, their campaign of mass killings, the repression of women, and the persecution of ethnic and religious groups has amounted to a continuous armed assault on the population of Afghanistan. The National Resistance Front of Afghanistan represents the legitimate exercise of the people of Afghanistan's right to defend themselves against an armed aggressor. The United Nations General Assembly, through Resolution 2625 of 1970, affirms the right of all peoples to freely determine their political status without external coercion. Resolution 3314 of 1974 goes further, recognizing the legitimacy of people's struggle by all available means, including armed struggle, against colonial domination, foreign occupation, and racist regimes. The Taliban today embody precisely this illegitimacy, an unelected terrorist entity that denies women education, bans civil liberties, and rules through foreign-sponsored extremism. Under international law and moral principle, the people of Afghanistan's armed resistance is not only justified, it is protected. The Taliban systematically violate nearly every article of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights: freedom and dignity, non-discrimination, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and the right to education. They enforce gender apartheid by excluding women and girls from education, work, and public life, a policy that scholars now classify as a crime against humanity under the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. Faced with such systematic crimes, armed resistance is not a preference, it is a duty of survival. International humanitarian law recognizes armed struggles for self-determination. Article 1 of Additional Protocol of 1977 extends protection of peoples fighting against colonial domination, alien occupation, and racist regimes. Liberation movements that abide by humanitarian law gain combatant and prisoner of war status. The National Resistance Front of Afghanistan, including other resistance groups such as the AFF, with its organization, command structure, and adherence to humanitarian norms, qualifies as such a liberation movement. Our resistance is therefore legally recognized by international law. The people of Afghanistan did not rush to arms. Basically, our resistance today started as a defense mechanism in 2021. For 20 years, we embraced democracy, elections, freedom of speech, and international cooperation. Yet in 2021, the world abandoned us. The Taliban terrorist group seized power by force, extinguishing all peaceful avenues for change, when every door to peaceful remedy is shut and people are subjected to continuous armed assault, resistance by force is legitimate. Nonviolent struggle requires a civic space. It requires a regime that values legitimacy, fears shame, and depends on international trade and reputation. That was the case of India under the rule of Great Britain and in South Africa under apartheid. But the Taliban, like ISIS, glorify violence. They do not seek legitimacy. They thrive on domination. Under their rule, protests are crushed, activists are tortured, and women are silenced. There is no international protection for Afghanistan civil society. Without armed resistance, peaceful activism is in reality a suicide. The NRF's armed struggle is the shield that allows even the faintest space for civic voices to exist. A Taliban-ruled Afghanistan is once again a sanctuary for international terrorism. There is a myriad of regional and global terror networks thriving in Taliban-occupied Afghanistan today. The NRF's resistance is therefore not only an internal conflict, it is the continuation of the global fight against terrorism. Therefore, in such a conflict, non-violence means is futile. Only sticking to non-violence means in civic or civil resistance. How are we supposed to fight terrorism, fight ISIS, fight Al-Qaeda, fight the TTP, Ansarullah, and the Taliban terrorist group with non-violent means? When they come attack us, they take our land, our homes, our property, take our rights, our inalienable rights, basically facing genocidal groups like these terror and criminal networks. There is no other method except to pursue armed resistance and to defend ourselves. History teaches us that tyranny rarely collapses on its own. Freedom has been won through resistance. Europe against Nazism and fascism, Africa against apartheid, Asia against colonial rule. Just as the French resistance resisted Nazi occupation, just as South Africans fought apartheid, the people of Afghanistan today resist Taliban terror and tyranny. Their cause is no less just and legitimate. Where nonviolence has been met with massacre, whether in Nazi-occupied Europe, Syria, Myanmar, armed resistance became the only path to survival. Afghanistan is no different than any of these other conflicts and countries. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the armed resistance of the National Resistance Front of Afghanistan and other resistance groups that are present inside the country is not a war of choice. It is a war of necessity, a defense of life, liberty, dignity against an illegitimate terrorist group. International law, UN principles, the Geneva Conventions, and the very lessons of history converge on a single truth. When a people are subjugated to terror, by terror, stripped of their rights and abandoned by the world, they are justified in taking up arms to secure freedom. And as the Holy Quran declares in Surah Al-Hajj, permission to fight has been given to those who are being fought, because they were wronged, and indeed the Almighty is competent to grant them victory. Thank you.
آقای ناجی، امروز شما یکی از سخنوران کنفرانس سالانه مسعود هستین. از نظر شما و دیدگاه شما همچون محافل چی تاثیر بر روال مثبت افغانستان خواهد داشت؟
خب در واقع اینجا ما در این کنفرانس کمبریج پروسس که در واقع در مورد افغانستان و ساختن یک نقشه را برای افغانستان از طریق موزاییک فاوندیشن برگزار شده بود هستیم و اگر دقت کرده باشی سخنرانی هم در همون راستا بود. خب همیشه یک سوال جدی هست که خب اگر به هر دلیلی چون از یک طرف افغانستان همین اکنون یک دولت مشروع نداره، یک نظام قانونی ندارد و این خودش افغانستان را در یک انزوای کامل بین المللی برده، باعث فقر بسیار شدید مردم شده. روزگار مردم شما خبر دارین، وضعیت در مجموع خبر دارین. خب اگر اتفاق جدی میفته یا تغییری که باید در افغانستان بیاید، نیازمند از این نگرانی هایی که مردم دارند از اینکه چه خواهد شد و چطور مدیریت خواهد شد، نیازمند از این است که یک هماهنگی میان نیروها در سطوح مختلف بین جامعه مدنی، فعالین زنان، نیروهای سیاسی، اپوزیسیون و جبهات نظامی وجود داشته باشد که تقریبا این دور سومش بود و از قبل هم کار شده. تمام طرف ها دیدگاه خود درباره ای که چطور یک افغانستان را میخواهند و سر کلیات توافق وجود داره مبنی بر اینکه افغانستان آینده باید یک نظام قانونی و مشروع داشته باشد، جزئی از جامعه جهانی باشد و در عین حال دموکراتیک باشد، مردم به اصطلاح صلاحیت و حق مالکیت اصلی از آن مردم باشد، نظام‌های سیاسی از طریق انتخابات بیاید همه مردم به عنوان شهروندان در اونجا مشارکت داشته باشند. ولی ای که مثلا شیوی از چطور باشد، چطور یک ساختار را داشته باشد، آیا متمرکز باشد، فدرال باشد، نمیفهمم، پارلمانی باشد، این حقی است که مردم افغانستان داره که تعیین بکنن. نیروهای سیاسی فقط باید زمینه حضور مردم را در یک روند دموکراتیک و عادلانه باید فراهم بکنن تا مردم تصمیم بگیرن. و بحث دوم هم که چطور در مرحله گذار چطور مدیریت شود، چطور افغانستان در صورت سقوط طالبان که دیر یا زود اتفاق میفته این روند چطور مدیریت شود، سهم و جایگاه جامعه جهانی چطور باشد، نیروهای اپوزیسیون چگونه با هم دیگر مشارکت بکنن و اینکه چه ضرورتی الان وجود داره در مورد اینکه ما برای سرزمین و سرنوشت و کشیدن افغانستان از این بحران باید مبارزات مسلحانه بکنیم، چون هیچ گزینه‌ای افغانستان برای عبور از طالب نیاز داره که تمام گزینه‌های خود استفاده کنه. یک گزینه‌ها فعالیت‌های مدنی است، یک گزینه‌ها اعتراض زنان است، یک گزینه‌ها فعالیت‌های فرهنگی و رسانه‌ای است و همچنین گزینه نظامی است. در مجموع این کنفرانس بیشتر حول از این محورها میچرخید.
چرا در طول 4 سال نقش سازمان ملل در قبال طالبان نرم است؟
خب به خاطر از اینکه سازمان ملل در واقع بیشتر سعی میکنه که الان میتونیم بگوییم که بخشی از طالبان شده به یک نحوی، به این معنا که خدمات رسانی که کار دولت ها در همه جا است عملا سازمان ملل در افغانستان با عهده گرفته. مثلا تامین نیازمندی های شفاخانه ها تا حدودی نمیفهمم و مسائل دیگه، در واقع خدمات را سازمان ملل ارائه میکنه، به خاطر که میترسه که طالبان چون واقعا هیچ مدیریت و ظرفیت و توانایی ندارن، بحران اقتصادی و بشری خیلی بیشتر از آنچه که اکنون ما میبینیم شدیدتر شود. ولی همونطور که خودتان میبینی و دنبال میکنی قضایا را و آگاه هستی بیشتر از ما، میبینی که در عمل برعکس شده. یعنی بحران اقتصادی اجتماعی که اکنون افغانستان با او روبروست بسیار بیشتر از 4 سال پیش است. یعنی این امکان نداره و کم کم دنیا و سازمان ملل متحد خودش داره به این نتیجه میرسه که در نبود یک دولت قانونی و مشروع، در نبود یک نظام منتخب و مردمی که مردم همکار از او باشند و بخشی از او باشند، نمیشه با پیسه دادن با مثلا خدمت رسانی از طریق نهادهای مثل سازمان ملل تو نمیتونی بحران جلوگیری بکنی. تو باید اول مسئله اصلی و بحران اصلی رو که نبود یک نظام قانونی هست و بحران سیاسی که در وجود داره اول باید رو حل کنی.
پیشنهاد شما پس از طالبان چی نوع حکومتی در افغانستان کارآمد خواهد بود؟
خب ما فکر میکنیم که قبلا هم اشاره کردم، دیدگاه جبهه آزادی در این مورد است که نظامی که در افغانستان میآید نوعیتش مردم حق دارن تعیین بکنن، منتها
یعنی نظام جمهوریت
در که جمهوری باشد در او شکی نیست، اما در همین جمهوریت هم انواع و اقسامی دارد، مردم باید تعیین بکنن. اما چند تا اصل را ما در اونجا داریم که او تأمین عدالت اجتماعی است، دموکراتیک بودن نظام است و همخوان بودنش با واقعیت اجتماعی افغانستان. ببینین در هر کجای هر نظامی هر ساختاری جواب داده، در خیلی از جاها فدرالیسم جواب داده، در خیلی از جاها نظام پادشاهی جواب داده. همه این نظام ها ایتون نیست که یکش کاملا پرفکت باشد دیگرایش نه خیر. پاسخگویی و جواب دادن نظام ها و کارآمد بودن نظام ها در یک جامعه بستگی به این داره که چقدر با واقعیت اجتماعی همون جامعه همخوان است. افغانستان یک جامعه به شدت متکثر است، از نظر فرهنگی، قومی، زبانی، مذهبی و گذشته تاریخی و حافظه جمعی افغانستان متکثر است. بنابراین اگر یک نظامی میآید که اینمی تنوع را به رسمیت نمیشناسه، درست در پی حذف است، در پی نادیده گرفتن است، این نامش میخواد امارت باشد، میخواد جمهوری باشد، میخواد هر چیزی باشد، این جواب نمیده. ولی اگر یک نظامی باشد که امی تنوع را به رسمیت بشناسه و او را بپذیره و برای امی تنوع و بازتاب امی تنوع حق قائل شود، در او صورت است که این نظام سیاسی در افغانستان کارآمد خواهد بود.
جان سپاس.
سلامت باشید.
Two comments and something to inform on Zainab Jones' books. The textbooks that you were quoting actually reflect the previous regimes. These textbooks, I think, were made during the Mujahideen, during the the Islamic State of Afghanistan. Excuse me, let me finish. Some of it is a reaction to the communist books, but there is also, I hope that you get the textbooks of the Republic, because the Republic, in reaction to the Mujahideen, deleted all references to being a mujahid, to being this kind of thing. And it's a very, very good topic to take all those three and discuss citizenship, but also take the textbooks of the Zahir Shah period. I am a Zahir Shahi person. I'm 79 years old and I was brought up in that, which viewed citizenship differently. It would really be very phenomenally very good. Thank you. And for, I think it was one person that said there should be a referendum for the Pashtuns. Maybe it was Dr. Isar, or maybe this other gentleman. There is one thing about the Pashtuns wanting the Durand line to actually go away and join the Pashtun brethren in Pakistan. I'm just finishing one sentence. One sentence. During the Republic, several groups of the Pashtuns of Pakistan came to Afghanistan. Several Pashtuns from Afghanistan actually welcomed them back to their country. And several of those Pashtuns of Pakistan got up and said, we are loyal citizens of Pakistan. We are Pashtuns. So in other words, even if the Pashtuns of Afghanistan want a change in the Durand line, the Pashtuns of Pakistan may not want this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We go to the...
Is it possible?
It is. Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. And keep the mic with you.
Yeah.
I think everybody can hear me. Yes. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let me start from that one man, one woman issue. I swear that with all the interesting background I have one wife. And I have 7 kids. 3 of them are daughters and 4 are sons. 3 daughters and only 1 son has got master's degree. The others didn't reach that level. And all the 3 daughters have got their master's degree in this particular city. So I'm proud of it. I'm proud of my son also, but I'm more proud of my daughters who are all now married, because that's what the reason I say that a young man, they might be thinking of so they're all married and they have children. Well, let me first comment on the setup, because when I entered and my friend Professor Sampal was giving the introduction and I was looking at you, it reminded me of my last presentation in the American University of Afghanistan in Kabul. It was a very similar setup. And that was the good old days, that was Kabul Jam, which we have lost it, but we will get it back. Let me assure you, we'll get it back. Today is 28th of September, and this is the day that we lost one leader who was a religious scholar, who was champion of peace, champion of reconciliation. And he was leader of freedom from the Soviet invasion. That's Professor Burhanuddin Rabbani. On this day he was martyred. And because it's the Martyrs or Shahada's week or Shahada's month, I cannot say without mentioning our great hero, national hero, Ahmad Shah Massoud. I had the opportunity to have many conversations, many breakfasts, many dinners, many lunches with Professor Rabbani. But I regret I never met Ahmad Shah Massoud. And that's one of the regrets I carry on in my life. The more I learn about him, the more I regret that I should have met him and I should have learned from him. So may the soul of both of them be in Jannat al-Firdaus. But we also have to mention other shahadas also. Particularly, I mean, we have millions of shahadas, but particularly those we lost to the atrocities of Taliban, particularly after the 2021. Because after 2021, after the Doha Agreement, no Afghan was supposed to be killed. All Afghans were supposed to be united in one single administration, and the country was supposed to be united, but we lost it.
And we still use them. Every week, every day, some of them who get angry, part of the resistance group, they face Taliban and they are killed and they are martyred. But there are more innocent martyrs, more innocent shuhadas. That they left the country, they went to Pakistan, they went to Iran, and now they are forced back to the country. And they say there is general amnesty, but somebody comes in the night and they take them out of their home, and then the dead body goes to their family. And then Taliban say, well, this was personal animosity, we don't have control over this. These are also the great shahadas. I wish them all Jannat al-Firdaus, and to their families, Sabri Jameel. Let me come a bit more to the point now, and to the question Professor Saib also raised, which I will come to the end of that, at the end of my presentation to that one. 4 years ago, I think it was this month, we had a conference in Muscat in Oman. And that was hosted by the organization, we call it IISS, which is a British organization, International Institute for Security Studies, which is a great organization. And within the points that you mentioned in my CV, I am associate fellow also in IISS. So there was that conference, and it was very sad. We had lost Afghanistan to Taliban. But the international community was more excited. I'm talking about the autumn of 2022. Wow, Taliban are great, they are united, the whole country is united, they rule in one hand, etc., etc. When it was my presentation, I talked about differences between Taliban, among the Taliban, even as early as September 2022. And people were looking at me with surprise. And somebody asked me, but they all look united. What are you talking about? I said, if they remain united, that means they are not Afghans. So some of the participants from that conference are reminding me that yes, you are right. Today, 4 years later, let me assure you that we, the non-Taliban Afghans, because in Afghanistan there are two groups. There are Taliban and there are non-Taliban Afghans. We, the non-Taliban Afghans, are more united than the Taliban amongst ourselves. Or in another word, Taliban are more divided than we are divided, if we put it that way. That's also true. I'm not saying that we are one organization, one unity, one alliance, one coalition. There are many different organizations, but we have a lot in common. We speak to each other. While Taliban, we know, and if you like, I can speak in more details if you're interested, they are going down. Their differences are increasing. There are instances that they were close to the fight, like we saw between the Khalqis and Parchamis in the late 1970s. I think they were also close to that in 2024. But somebody intervened and they put them back on track and united them. And for how long? Because the reasons that they have to be divided are much stronger than the reasons they should remain united. For us, we have more reasons to be united, to be on the same page, than to be divided. And the biggest reason for us to become united, to come together, is that we have one common enemy. Taliban have many enemies. We have one enemy, that's Taliban. That's the enemy of our people. That's the enemy of our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, our granddaughters. I don't want my granddaughter not to have the opportunity that my daughters have. I want my granddaughter to have more opportunities than my daughters have. And Taliban clearly denied that opportunity. So they are the biggest enemy. Anyway. Why do I claim that we are more united than Taliban are? Less than a year ago, a few of us came together and we said, let's create a bigger umbrella. We have umbrellas. We have the Shura Ali Muqawimat. We have the Resistance Front. We have the Freedom Front. We have many umbrellas. and some of them are together. But a grand political umbrella was the idea to come up with it. And after some debates, we thought that we could create what we call it the National Salvation, the National Assembly for Salvation of Afghanistan, which becomes NASA. That's just to remember it easier. Believe me that when we were forming NASA, it was so easy to form. We didn't go what we say in Pashto, Nanawati, to beg people that please come. And so as soon as we called somebody, say, yes, we are with you, we were already with you. So it was so easy to put that together. And it's moving very well. I'm not here to campaign for that. You have to learn about it, but however, I have a one-page brief in English on NASA. If you are interested, I can pass it on electronically, and you can have a look at it. You can read it. You can give me feedback. So my experience is that the non-Taliban Afghans are now more united than the Taliban. But being united is not enough. We have to have a vision, we have to have agenda, we have to have a plan, we have to have a roadmap. And I think that's the work you did. You did our job. Thank you to Zalmay and his colleague and all those who are involved in coming up with the national roadmap, which you call it. I am sure when we have a copy of that and we take it to the Leadership Council of the NASA, they will say, yes, this is our work. We love it. They would also subscribe. I'm sure they would subscribe to that. So you made our job easier. But then we have to have the entire Afghan nation on our side. We have to have the people of Afghanistan on our side. I mean, okay, we can send it to our Afghans in London, in US, in Istanbul, in Dubai, and these are significantly important groups of Afghans, but it's not the entire Afghanistan. And here I want to give you my opinion in brackets that often or I see that people talk about people inside Afghanistan like if they're Taliban or they're hostage with Taliban. Both are true. There are Taliban and there are hostages with Taliban, and there are different categories of hostages. But there are people inside Afghanistan that are not hostage with Taliban. They do the struggle, and we see them that they struggle against Taliban. They have learned how to survive and how to struggle. For ease of reference and for ease of working with us, I have divided it into many categories. There is one category of youth, men and women, that I take the liberty to call them the products of the Republic, the 20 years of the Republic. Some people may disagree with me. Why do I call them the products of Republic? Back in 2001, when we arrived in Afghanistan, when we all got rid of Taliban with international assistance, hardly 2 universities were functional in the country. Kabul, Jalalabad, and a little bit of Kandahar. And in those universities, there were only 5,000 students. None were girls. They were all boys. And I visited some of those universities even before the fall of Taliban, because I was working with United Nations with Professor Sambal together, and we had the privilege of being able to visit anywhere. Let me share with you that story. I went to Kabul University with a delegation that had come from New York. And there were professors sitting around wearing turbans with chadar. I could imagine when I was studying in this university, I had a different image of professor. They looked different. But now, so anyway, then the topic was human rights. One of the professors started crying, literally crying. And he said, talking to me about human rights. Every morning I come out of home, my children expect me back to go with food. And I go empty hand because there is no salary. And if there is a salary, it's hardly enough for one day. So that was the university I'm talking about in 2001. 20 years later, because I kept statistics every year, that was an area of my interest. On the day we were leaving Afghanistan, the country had given graduates to 1.5 million youths. And 33% of that was girls. I wish it was 50%, but it was hard to achieve. Now, those are there. Maybe a couple of hundred of thousands of them have left the country, but the rest are there. And they're not Taliban, they are victims of Taliban. We have to find a way to work with them. And for that, we need to have a place in our roadmap on how to reach them. There is another interesting category.
How much time do you need?
What you are the boss?
Couple minutes?
Okay, couple minutes. Now, there is another category of also, which I call them the educated elites that are pro-Taliban. They are in the country, they are educated. On the surface, they are pro-Taliban, they preach pro-Taliban agendas, but privately, when you contact them, they are with us. So I hope the roadmap that we have come up, which will become the roadmap of NASA, inshallah, that roadmap reaches all Afghans inside Afghanistan, all Afghans outside Afghanistan. And I'm with you. Again, I will conclude with a pledge that you have a serving alliance, a serving coalition, which is called the National Assembly for Salvation of Afghanistan, and that is there to discuss. I'm not speaking, or I cannot decide on their behalf, but they will discuss in their leadership council, and I'm sure if they don't adopt it, they will give you feedback to the group. And also I'm suggesting that when I was coming here, this is a very important initiative. I congratulate everybody that were part of it, but it should not be a kind of initiative that we hear it now and then once in a year we hear about it. We wait for another year, then we get an invitation that let's come together and discuss it. I think it has to be followed up. Strictly follow up. Whatever way you do it, which way you do it, that's up to you. So thank you very much, Professor Sampal. Thank you very much.
90% of this material is broadly agreed by everybody, but there are these issues, and I mean, I don't think that they're hugely substantial, but the issues that we discussed, inequality and justice, the strategy for change, fighting or talking, and certainly there needs to be more language in the existing document giving legitimacy to armed resistance than we have at the moment, in my view. The role of the international community, the type of system that we might end up with. This is an approach, a preparation for a constitution. It's not the constitution, but we might have some language in it which everyone accepts that we're not going to end up with a centralized constitution for Afghanistan. That probably won't work again in the future. And the fifth one, of course, was territorial integrity of the country. And I was very struck by the opinion poll, straw poll as it were, that Ambassador Amdisha gave us on the first day from the group that he was meeting, saying who in this room would accept the borders of the current Afghanistan as Afghanistan. 95%, including a room full of half Pashtuns, agreed. So in a sense, these may not be stumbling blocks towards reaching a final conclusion. I was very struck by the sense of division among the diaspora. People talked about this wonderful phrase, long-distance nationalism. And somebody said in that group about pluralism, it's harder to get agreement among groups abroad than when they live next door to each other in Afghanistan. And that sort of sense of the diaspora dividing, which we've seen in so many countries in the past, is something which I devoutly hope that Afghanistanis abroad will not get stuck in the future. On the panel about local government, we heard of the practical issues of government in Afghanistan from two outstanding practitioners, and the one line I took away from that was this Rumi quote that truth is like a mirror of God. In the hands of God, each shard does not tell the whole truth, and I think we can absolutely see in all of the groups that are gathered here that each shard does not tell the whole truth. Just one other line from yesterday, Marissa Kui, silence is never neutral. We all have a responsibility, and those of us outsiders who love Afghanistan, many of them in this room, as well as Afghans themselves, and of course as my good friend, old friends, former colleagues as journalists in Afghanistan together years ago, Afghanistan's leading journalist, now a senior political figure, as he was reminding us, we don't have much time, and the governor was reminding us as well. People in villages in Afghanistan are not waiting on the words of conferences, they're wanting genuine change, and we do need, I think you said 2 months, I think you gave us 2 months from this panel, so certainly by the end of the year, we need to go back to all of the 20 different groups and say, okay, well, we've taken your proposal, your roadmap, what do you think of this proposal? And which takes ideas from all of these different roadmaps and delivers the potential for change, and then amend it as it goes along. This is a living document. It's not the final roadmap. It's a living document which goes forward, and it'll be the buy-in from the different political groups and currents, political parties and currents of Afghanistan that give it life. And then they need to take it inside their own communities in order to really deliver it into the document that we hope it'll be, which will be the thing which, when Afghanistan changes, becomes the menu, if you like, the agenda for groups to come together to build a new constitution in the new Afghanistan, so that we don't go back to the dark days of the early 1990s when people were arguing among themselves, fighting among themselves. And people in this room, of course, remember these days as well as I do. So there are 3 things that really need to be done in order to move forward from this room today. Socialising it, as it were, within the 20 different groups and others. Persuading them, secondly, to publish it within their own communities and publish it with the widest possible ownership inside Afghanistan itself, so that if we can get buy-in from groups, parties, individuals inside Afghanistan, then this could become something which is a real document. And thirdly, work among the international community to get political space for the Afghan opposition. The Taliban had amazing legitimacy just from having an office in Doha from, it originally opened in 2011, but really from 2014 onwards. And then, of course, the Americans started talking to them. If the Afghan opposition had a political space, and I know that Ambassador Andisha and the other ambassadors are working on this very hard at the moment. It's not all doom and gloom. I was struck in the panel this morning, Zara Joya, so civil society in exile has reached a peak of what we can do, a sense that it is clearly very difficult going forward. And your point, of course, we neither have the watch nor the time now, about taking on that old trope about the Taliban. But I think there is absolutely hope, and there's hope in this room. There's hope from the National Resistance Front, Freedom Front, from political groups, other potential military groups for going forward in Afghanistan. And as we were reminded, there's only one enemy that everybody agrees with in this room. And just my very, very final thought from Ambassador Samadi yesterday from this conference: the Taliban can't stay long because they're wrong. Thank you.
actually, I should not supposed to talk now. Dr. Dagi had prepared notes of thanks from those who made this conference possible, but because David so ably summarized everything, Dagi thought that there is no need for him to say, do the summarization of the 2 days, but it is very important for me to acknowledge those who made this conference possible. But before that, I want to be clear, it was a very, kind of not very easy job to create a working group, independent and competent working group. Mosaic is only the facilitator. We have facilitated the formation of a working group that is chaired by one organization and have membership from different organizations, from civil society, from women, from journalists, from also we have observers and experts to see how, for example, Susanna is here. We have been honored to include her to see as an observer what we are doing, so that they can see how, we are going to be in the name of transparency to do this. Also, we had other scholars being there to see our work. The working group basically started with TOR, terms of references, agreed on the principles, based on which principles they should combine the 20 proposals, as well as then they produced documents that basically, they had to agree on several set of documents before producing the roadmap. So everything was done very professionally and very competently. And Mosaic was not involved in any of that. We only were their facilitator. But that facilitation was a very difficult and hard job to do, and most of the work sometimes fell on Mosaic staff. So I would really, most of the Mosaic staff are here. Also, we have a lot of volunteers and those invisible people. Probably if I go and name them, it will become too long. But Peter is here, he's sitting, Chris is over there, and Joanna is here, as well as Daisy and Rade, who really help us a lot, Jenna, as well as Irshad, who is in the room, I guess, and several others. Also, we have generous donors, because this conference is not possible without a little bit of amount of money. So the Ipswich community of Afghanistan, they have been a big support of us for the past few years, as well as the community in Glasgow, as well as the community of Afghanistans in London, as some entrepreneurs. I'm not sure if they want me to name them. Maybe somebody nods and says no. So, so this conference would have not been possible without the generous giving and donations. So, most of all, I would like to thank all the panelists and contributors who came, some of them from long ways, long distances to present, as well as esteemed politicians who took the time to come here and be part of this. Also, thank you so much for all the participants who made this conference lively and fruitful. Also, I would like to take the time to thank Food for Thought for their contribution and for their partnership, which also their partnership and contribution made this conference possible. Also, I would like to acknowledge CDP, Center for Progress and Dialogue Geneva, and to basically for their partnership and for enabling us to hold this conference. So a lot of thanking to do. Maybe I have forgotten some people, and if I have forgotten, I want to apologize from before. It's not intentional. Maybe I've forgotten that. Thank you so much. And
the co-founder of Mosaic.
Yes.
You're lovely.
Well, Sarpil,
Yeah.
they mentioned, about Sarpil, and Queen John is very kind enough to say about our family loss, but despite that, we have tried to stand up strongly. Thank you very much.
خوشبختانه در کنار ما آقای سلمه نشاط، بنیانگذار موزاییک گلوبال فاوندیشن داریم و جزئیات بیشتر از زبان خودشان میشنویم. آقای نشاط، اگر لطف کنین به دوستا بگوین که چه وقتی تأسیس شد بنیادتان و چی کارهایی را تا حال انجام داده؟
بسیار تشکر از اینکه فرصت گذاشتین و آمدین در کنفرانس ما. عملا یکی در جریان دیروز و امروز کنفرانس داشتیم. بریم سر در دانشگاه کمبریج در جیزس کالج و امروز روز دومی کنفرانس ماست که تقریبا تا شاید 1.5 ساعت دیگه تمام شود و بیایم سر پرسش شما. بنیاد موضوعی که در سال 2022 در ماه اگستش در بریتانیا ایجاد شده، اول به عنوان نان فور پروفیت یا سازمان خیریه، بعدا به عنوان چریتی از توسط چریتی کمیشن یا همون کمیسیون نهادهای خیریه که بریتانیا پذیرفته شده و ما در 5-6 بخش کار میکنیم. یک بخش ما آموزش پرورش برای دختران افغانستان است چون محروم هستند از درس بعد از صنف هفتم. ما مکاتب زیرزمینی داریم در افغانستان و برای از اونها از صنف 7 تا صنف 12 کوشش میکنیم که از طریق مکاتب زیرزمینی درس داده شود. بعد از صنف 12 هم کوشش میکنیم که در زبان انگلیسی بیاموزن و بتونن تا اندازه تعدادش که بتونن درخواست بتونن و در کشورهای دیگه درس بخونن. بخش دوم کار ما ایجاد یک پلتفرم برای جامعه مدنی افغانستان است چون بعد از آمدن طالبا جامعه مدنی افغانستان تقریبا از بین رفته و جامعه تکصدا طالبا میخوان جور بکنن که تنها آواز و روایت از ما وجود داشته باشه. ما کوشش میکنیم یک پلتفرم جامعه مدنی که همه شمول، متنوع و دموکراتیک باشه، 3 خصر داشته باشه ایجاد بکنیم که ایجاد کردیم. بیشتر از 40-50 نهاد و صدها تا از چهره های شاخص جامعه مدنی افغانستان عضویت از او دارن. کار سوم ما است که ما برای کمپینی که به خاطر آپارتاید جنسیتی راه انداخته شده که وضعیت زن در افغانستان به عنوان آپارتاید جنسیتی شناخته شده و بعد از اینکه در سطح جهانی پذیرفته شد و این جرم انگاری شود یا criminalization of gender apartheid در حقوق بین المللی در این راستا کار میکنیم و کسایی که در این راستا بانوهایی که کمپین میکنن ما توانمندشان میسازیم، همراهشان کمک میکنیم، در اون بخش کار میکنیم. در بخش دیالوگ جوانان کار میکنیم و در بخش دیالوگ فرهنگی بین افغانستان و آسیای میانه و کشورهای دیگه کار میکنیم و بالاخره یک کنفرانس سالانه در دانشگاه کمبریج که 4 سال شد دوام داره و دیروز و امروز دور 4م کنفرانس بود که تقریبا حالت تمام شدن است و شما اینجا تشریف آوردین.
سپاس. محور اصلی امی درست سر چی میچرخید؟
بسیار تشکر. اصلا این کنفرانس در واقع تلاش بود برای رونمایی نقشه راه جامعه گروه های سیاسی و مدنی افغانستان که به خاطر افغانستان یک دیدگاه دارن و دیدگاه خود به صورت نقشه راه ارائه کردن. ما به خاطر از اینکه هماهنگی بین جریان های مخالف طالب به وجود بیاید تلاش کردیم که تسهیل بکنیم، یک کارگروه را ایجاد بکنیم که کارگروه بتونه نقشه های راه مختلف جمع بکنه و بعدا یا توحید بکنه، ترکیب بکنه در یک نقشه راه جامعه. و این حدود بیشتر از 1 سال 1.5 سال از این کار کردیم و بالاخره تونستیم حدود 20 نقشه راه جریان های مختلف را جمع بکنیم و این کارگروه تونسته که یک نقشه راه جامعه مختلط یا ترکیبی را ایجاد بکنه. رونمایی از او بود و بعدا بحث در پیرامون نظامی. دستاورد این کنفرانس همیست.
بسیار تشکر آقای نشاط. موفق باشید.
تشکر.